the classroom that provided mentorship, that provided support, that provided encouragement. And many of you here today are advocates for organizations that do provide those services. And one of them specifically that we work closely with is the Crittenton Foundation. And it's been a pleasure to go to events with the Crittenton Foundation, both across the country and here in DC, and really see what it means for a young woman to glow when she has that support in her life. I think you will see that in the next speaker who I'm bringing up here, Leteria, who now is 23 years old, but since the age of 16 had been involved with the Crittenton services here in Washington, DC. So she is going to come up, speak a little bit about her story, and then introduce our keynote speaker.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Leteria. I first off want to say that I'm an immigrant from Jamaica, and coming in this morning, that weather was disrespectful. But I'm here, I'm honored and excited to be in the White House. It was disrespectful. I'm honored to be in the White House. I woke up at 5:30 this morning, and I said, I have a story to share, and I'm going to share it today. When I was 8 years old, I lost my mother to HIV and AIDS, and I would say forced to come to the United States because I pretty much had no one else in Jamaica. My aunt then adopted me and became my mother, and she saw something in me that I was smart, and that I loved school, and that I was really excelling in my academics. She always motivated me to do my best, but you know, sometimes in life there's challenges. Like I had the challenge of being a dreamer, or having DACA, which is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Now, I've never publicly shared my DACA status until the last time I was at the White House, and I was honored to do it because I saw that there were other people around me that were going through the same thing. And oftentimes in life, especially when you're young, like when I was a teenager, you go through things and you don't really know, A, if you're gonna make it, yes, and B, if you really have support around you. When I was 15 years old, I knocked on the Crittenton doors at my school because all my friends were talking about the program that were in it and just how great it was, and I wanted to be a part of that. So I joined, and to be honest, it was one of the best decisions I made in my life. Through this program, this amazing Crittenton program, which was made to help teen women strengthen and empower themselves. They teach us sexual health education. They teach us how to be great friends, how to be leaders in our communities. And I'm a living example of that. Today, what I really wanted to focus on was that Crittenton programs didn't make me great. What Crittenton programs did for me was show me that I had it in me to be great, and that I had the power to excel and exceed no matter what situations were handed to me in life. When I was 20 years old, it was a hard time for me in my life. I lost my mother to breast cancer. I then became homeless. And the people at Crittenton Services were right there for me when I needed support and when I needed help. And it wasn't anything that I asked for. They reached out to me to show you the kind of organization that they are. And to be honest, I think this is the type of thing that every teenage girl needs in their life. You know, to this day, I still keep in contact with the adult that would come into school every week and give me advice on everything, from boys to teachers to just everything that matters to you in life at that moment. And I'm still in good contact with her today. I was able to get my first scholarship through Crittenton Services of Greater Washington. I'm now a graduate of Montgomery College. I'm a certified technician. Why? Because girls love computers too. leader and community activist. I've worked at 3 different nonprofits in the Washington, D.C. area. And to be honest, I got that spirit of philanthropy through the people that I saw at Crittenton. There's amazing women of color at Crittenton who go out in their communities and truly serve the youth that matter, because they're going to grow up and to be like me in the future and hopefully be presented to people like you one day. But what I want to focus on is that the programs empower, and empowerment is key. Right now, I was empowered in my life to create my own organization called Young, Black, and Aware. Because I wanted to bring light to the inequities going on in different communities of color, and I wanted to give a voice to that and have a platform. And I didn't see anyone doing it like I wanted to do it, so I did it myself. And I really got that spirit of philanthropy and just to be able to know that I can lead something from Clinton. Forgot to look down at my paper. Let me look down for a second. But through Clinton, I've been able to meet amazing people in the DC area. Like I said, I was at the White House before through Clinton, sharing my story. And I'm able to meet the movers, leaders, shakers in the DC area. And you know, leaders who advocate and create resources for change for communities of color, like the people at Crittenton who are literally going in and doing the work with the students. That's what's really going to make America great. Thank you. This is why I'm absolutely honored to be here today to introduce our next speaker. She's someone who not only believes in advancing equity for women and girls of color, but who's built an amazing career ensuring that it actually happens. She continues to show us that any barrier created against the basic civil rights of humanity can and will be broken. She is the amazing Vanita Gupta. Ms. Gupta currently serves as the Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General and Head of the Civil Rights Department at the U.S. Department of Justice. Under Ms. Gupta's leadership, the division focuses in on a number of areas, including advancing constitutional policing, promoting disability rights, protecting the rights of LGBTQ individuals, combating discrimination in education, housing, lending, voting, you name it. Ms. Gupta was also a longtime civil rights lawyer. She was the Deputy Legal Director of the ACLU and its Center for Justice. From 2006 to 2010, Vanita was a staff attorney at the ACLU's Racial Justice Program. She won a landmark settlement on behalf of immigrant children detained in a privately run prison in Texas that led to the end of family detention at the facility. Impressive. Prior to that, she worked at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, where she successfully led the effort to overturn the wrongful drug convictions of 38 individuals in Tulia, Texas, who were ultimately pardoned by Governor Rick Perry. Vanita also served several years as an adjunct clinical professor at NYU School of Law, where she taught and oversaw a civil rights litigation clinic. In fact, for her entire career, she worked to hold our system of laws to the highest standard and protect all citizens. It's an honor to share the stage with someone who was a role model to people like me, the next generation of social and human rights advocates. Please help me today in welcoming Vanita Gupta.
I just want to say, can we give Leteria another round of applause? She was standing at the side doing deep breathing exercises. I gotta say, she is the keynote speaker this morning, not me. Thank you, Leteria. Thank you for your leadership, for your passion, for putting all of this into life through your own example, because we need you. So thank you very much. I want to thank all of you this morning. It's so great to be in this room with all these women of color. I love it. It is, just having so many strong women in this room today, to me, it is a real demonstration of the incredible work and effort, the tireless efforts of so many of you in this room to support women and girls of color, in particular, across this country. And I want to recognize just a few of my outstanding colleagues who we just heard from, Catherine Lehman and Carol Mason, and Cecilia Munoz, and Latifah Lyles, and Nadine Garcia. Really, across the Obama administration, we all really believe that empowering girls today and by providing them a seat at a table and defending and advancing their civil rights, we are going to be helping our country to reach its full potential tomorrow. And how we treat women and girls of color, how we lift each other up and support each other, and how we inspire one another, I think really changes lives and changes communities. It strengthens families and it transforms our country. And as a woman of color myself, I kind of learned this lesson early on, like so many of you, that my own identity can't be parsed out into being a woman or being of color, that these things are so intersectional in so many ways. And my own grandmother, one of the smartest women I know, was fiercely, fiercely independent. And she got married when she was 16 years old, but she advocated passionately for the education of her daughters and granddaughters. And even as she grew up in a world that really denied a lot of rights to women, her faith in me changed my life and shaped my career. But it really is a world where it's individual women at Clinic who collectively can change and envision a brighter future and make sure that our dreams are not curtailed by our own sense of what we should expect of ourselves. And when I look out into this room, I really feel that same courage and sense of inspiration. It's really this notion that we can build a brighter future even when we know we are faced with great, great challenges ahead. For just over 2 years now, I've had the incredible privilege of running the Civil Rights Division at the U.S. Department of Justice. And it's a division that really is aimed at ensuring that all of our federal civil rights are enforced, but more importantly, that we are building a brighter future together really with all of you, that's building on your work so that every girl and woman in this country can reach their full potential. And I got to do it alongside some incredible female leadership at the Justice Department. It hasn't always been that way. I work alongside the first African-American female Attorney General Loretta Lynch, who by her own example, I think is saying so much about what our country can be. Our Deputy Attorney General, alongside also with Carol and Catherine and Cecilia and so many others who are really responsible for defending the security of our country, but also for vindicating the rights of the most vulnerable and the most marginalized among us. At America's foundings, and for decades and decades after that, we all know that our Constitution denied women, African Americans, basically anyone who was not a white man who owned property, the right to vote. And not that long ago, courts were sanctioning state-sponsored discrimination, from schools to restaurants to bathrooms, based on the color of one's skin, based on who they love, based on who they are. But today in America, a woman of color, a bold and visionary leader, our Attorney General, serves, I think, as the chief law enforcement officer. And we all know that success stories and individual success stories alone are not going to be erasing or sufficient to erase systemic injustices. They cannot eradicate profound inequities, but they do give me faith in this country's capacity for progress. It's this notion that we can march forward imperfectly but unyieldingly to build a more inclusive and a more just and a more free union. And they give me hope that together we can advance the cause of justice. For too many women and girls of color today, the cause of justice feels distant and out of reach. And so all of us have to work to identify and combat those unique barriers that are facing women and girls of color around the country. These are barriers that too often deny all of us the rights the Constitution guarantees and the opportunities that we deserve. Advancing justice really starts with our own children and our youth. It requires desegregating our schools and implementing the promise of boundless supportive education. Because as the Supreme Court ruled more than 6 decades ago, a sense of inferiority affects the motivation of a child to learn. Sadly, the vestiges of racial segregation in education are all too rampant today. Far too many children still attend racially segregated schools and live in racially isolated neighborhoods. And in school, we know that girls of color suffer particular harms from the intersection of discrimination based on race and gender. The Civil Rights Division continues to monitor 175 school desegregation cases around the country to make the promise of Brown versus Board of Education real. Earlier this year, following a 5-decade-long desegregation battle in Cleveland, Mississippi, 5 decades long, it's a city that is literally divided by railroad tracks that separate east from west and black from white. A federal court ordered the school district to consolidate its secondary schools. And last year, we reached an agreement with Huntsville, Alabama to desegregate its public schools, to improve access to quality course offerings and address racial discrimination and student discipline, among other areas. In her opinion, U.S. District Judge Madeline Hughes Hykela of the Northern District of Alabama, she spoke directly to the students, saying, "The district believes in you and in your potential for success. Think about how much the city of Huntsville will benefit from the contributions you will make in the years ahead as teachers and engineers, as doctors and lawyers, and as artists and musicians." Advancing justice also requires combating discriminatory school practices, which disproportionately harm children of color and have a particular pernicious effect on girls of color and children with disabilities. Too often, discriminatory discipline practices are fueling the school-to-prison pipeline in this country. And when young people end up serving time behind bars rather than earning diplomas and landing jobs, that hurts all of us. We've seen this tragic chain of events play out around the country. We saw it in Meridian, Mississippi, where we found students who were suspended from school and later incarcerated in a juvenile detention facility simply for violating the dress code by wearing the wrong color socks or leaving their shirts untucked. We saw it in Palm Beach County, Florida, the nation's 11th largest school district, where language barriers place children with limited English proficiency at risk of unfair suspensions and encounters with school police officers. And we saw it in Watson Chapel, Arkansas, where overly punitive and ineffective discipline practices prevented students of color from reaching their full potential. In each of these cases, and in so many more, the Civil Rights Division monitors robust settlement agreements to ensure that children get to spend their time learning and growing, not stuck in the juvenile justice system for routine disciplinary matters. For those kids who end up in the juvenile justice system, we work to ensure that they receive the full due process and equal protection rights that our Constitution guarantees. From Tennessee to Texas to Missouri, the Justice Department's led investigations and reached settlements to reform local juvenile justice systems. And just 2 days ago, we reached a settlement with the St. Louis County Family Court, which, among other measures, is aimed at reducing racial disparities that result at different stages at the local juvenile justice system. We're also working to bring transformative change to Ohio's juvenile correction system by ending punitive solitary confinement and advancing mental health care. These reforms go beyond mere policy shifts. They're about changing attitudes and changing the culture, building confidence, and helping to transform our youth's lives so that they can reach their full potential. In policing, the division work continues to vindicate the rights of vulnerable women, and we know there's a lot of work to do on these issues. From Missoula, Montana to New Orleans, Louisiana, from college campuses to city streets, we're working to prevent, with all of you, sexual assault and to address the harms of gender bias in policing. In New Orleans, for instance, we found that officers were wrongly arresting transgender women for prostitution and then charging them under the state's crimes against nature law. Multiple convictions under this law were forcing them to register as sex offenders, hurting their chances of landing a job or finding a home. And following lessons learned through our work with police departments around the country, last year we released new guidance that's aimed at helping state and local law enforcement address the very harmful stereotypes that state and local law enforcement agencies sometimes have based on, and these are stereotypes based on gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, or race, that can undermine their response to sexual assault and domestic violence. Bias and stereotypes across multiple bases, including gender and race, exacerbate the harm. There is no civilized society that can ever afford to look the other way when men abuse women, whether at home or on the job. And our common humanity really demands that we respond and that we speak out and that we act. We're working to empower women of color and the economy too, and you heard on some of these issues about what the administration's been trying to do, but really by promoting the timeless American ideal, that if you work hard, that if you play by the rules and if you follow the law, that you deserve an equal chance to succeed. We've been doing a lot of work on fair lending and fair housing to ensure that women and women of color in particular have access to the kind of credit that is so required for almost everything that we do in life. And we have had so many women affected by the work that we are doing, but it is work that is building on all of your advocacy that you do every day. We also vindicate the rights and have to vindicate the rights of women in employment. And we have got to prevent pay discrimination because all women deserve equal pay for equal work. When we don't get the wages that we deserve, businesses and working families and entire communities suffer. But really I'm here because I know today that we are speaking at a time where there's a lot of anxiety and uncertainty about where we are headed. And I want to speak first directly to all of the young women who are in the room as well as those around the country.